Oh, hi! This week, we're gonna try a thing. I don't know, y'all. I'm feeling so stuck today. I'm just not getting anything done because I have a to-do list that is overwhelming. Rather than do any of it, I'm just not. We're gonna try to get something done. Just thinking about getting anything done is making me immobile. I can't get up and tackle anything. This is one of the facets of ADHD that I struggle so much with, and I had no idea that that's what it was. I just thought I was lazy, but I'm literally trapped inside my own head. But even just turning the camera on and the studio lights, starting this process feels possible now, and I'm hoping getting into it, just the beginning steps, will get the snowball effect to start and I will get the thing done. The project I would like to work on today, however far we get, compassionate deadlines, as costuming drama likes to say. I want to try this pattern, which is the first commercial pattern I've ever tried. I made it in this Deathly Hallows fabric 3 years ago. It's been a long time. And ever since then, I've wanted to re-tackle making it and figure out how to make the bodice fit me right. It definitely didn't fit the first time. I had no idea about ease in pattern measurements, and also the finishing measurements are different than here's what size you should go with if these are your measurements. And I didn't know about any of this stuff. I don't know. I had a very black and white way of thinking about how patterns had to go, and you can do whatever the fuck you want with patterns, I've come to find out. So we're gonna revisit this one and I'm gonna make it my bitch. I think one of the biggest things I've learned, I took all of the extra fabric out at the side seams, and that made the princess seams sit way too wide for my chest, which also made the straps want to fall down. I think once I get the final version, I'm gonna put it onto the Swedish tracing paper that I have. I plan to make so many of these style dresses for the summer, because even though y'all saw how many dresses I have in my closet overhaul that I did a couple weeks ago, and almost none of them are good for summer. I just want a lot of thin strapped, breezy bottomed cotton dresses. To make that a possibility, I have to tackle this project today. It seems like a weird project to choose considering the headspace I'm in today, but I know going through this process is going to set future me up for success, and this is a type of self-care where you get to put in the work to better the days ahead, and it's not always going to feel easy. Today does not feel easy. I have been struggling through pretty much everything I've had going on all day, and the only way to get on the other side is to go straight goddamn through it. So let's get behind the wheel, meaning I'm gonna go get my rotary cutter and meet you over at the cutting table, and we're gonna chop up our pattern pieces and see what we can make of them. Let's do the damn thing. We've got this. First things first, I cut out a size 18 just so I could start from square one. I know there will need to be alterations, but I didn't want to get ahead of myself, so I figure start from here and then we will traverse the alterations with our newfound skill sets and not worry about what past us did to tackle this incorrectly. This time's gonna be better. Also, I definitely cut the wrong pattern piece on the fold. The center front is the only one that gets cut on the fold. Pay attention to the notes on the pattern, maybe. I don't always mark every notch. That being said, I did make sure to mark where the darts were. There's one on either side of the back, and then I marked the notches on the curve of the princess seams. It definitely makes things easier when you're matching up opposite shaped curves to each other, so I would recommend notching that stuff, but most of the other notches I completely ignore. I did do a tailor's tack at the end point of the dart. Of course it came apart because the thread I was using was very thin, so I went back with a thicker thread and a hand sewing needle and just did that. You can also just mark it with chalk or a pencil or something. I would recommend marking the dart legs, so the lines from that dot down to the little notches you cut at the bottom edge of the fabric. It's just gonna make it look neater and keeps me on a straight line, where sometimes things can get a little haywire because you gotta kind of eyeball the angle it has to go at, and listen, I don't have great depth perception, so sometimes it's hard for me to gauge. Then I just basted all of these pieces together along all of these seams. I knew it was going to be big enough that I didn't need to start with the zipper, so I just did basting stitches for all parts of this. Also, a helpful side note, just make a point to wear whatever bra you're gonna wear under your dress as you're doing the fittings, where I tend to wear the same style bra. I have 4 or 5 of the same kind that fit me the exact same way, but if there's a certain style, like a strapless one you want to wear with it, make sure that's what you're wearing when you're fitting stuff, because listen, those things can make our boobs go any and all directions. Helpful to know how they need to be wrangled. You know what I mean? Okay, I have made the mock-up clearly very big on me. It's so much space. I did a 1/2 inch seam allowance on all of this. Last time I only took stuff from the side seams, and that was the incorrect way to go about this. So I'm actually going to mark these princess seams a little bit over. It's supposed to, I think, go across the apex, basically your nips. So I'm gonna mark how far in that is. That's a whole nother inch. Jesus. Okay. Okay, so I took this in a 1/2 inch to start, and then I was gonna do another 1/2 inch. But even with all of the pulling and easing, I can't get it to look smooth over here, so I don't think it's meant to be taken in quite as much. Looking at this, I think what I need to do is take some of the width out of the front because I want the seam further over. Also, I think my apexes are going to be closer together because I have an inverted sternum and that kind of caves my chest in, and that makes these want to go a little closer together, you know? So maybe this is a modification that most other people don't have to make, but this is the figuring out process. I want you guys to see the troubleshooting because I'm sure everyone has to tweak a pattern somehow. But because I want this line, this is that princess seam line, it's too far over here, and going down a size is only going to move it over a little bit. So I think taking some width out of here, I think that's how I'm going to tackle this. It's on the folds. Don't need to worry about seam allowance. So I'm going to push this up over the edge a full inch. I'm going to mark the pattern right now. I'll cut my line right there. If this is where the center is, that's sitting right where my bra strap is. That's where I want this to be, where before it was over too far. I think this is a good plan of attack, and it's going to make the whole thing smaller. So I'll tackle this first. Oh, wait a second. This is making a lot more sense. This is what I mean when I'm not familiar with patterns. I've worked with my own patterns. I have used some patterns like the Tilly ones and stuff, and they talk about this a bit, but commercial patterns, these must be the finished measurements. Because look, I've been cutting all my stuff for a size 18, which on the envelope says is for a 38-inch bust, but I didn't know finishing measurements were different than the measurements you're going by the pattern size for because of all of the ease. This is saying the size 14, which is the smallest option on this fucking pattern, is 38.5, which is still too big. So that's got to be the finished measurement. Okay, so going down a whole size is not out of the question here. This line right here is pretty straight, although this comes over here. Although I don't mind this. Okay, here's where my head's at. I think I'm gonna wait rather than sizing everything down. Still gonna take that bit out of the center front. I'm gonna leave everything else as is for now because this is the piece that goes here. It's a pretty straight line. Going down 2 sizes would take up to 1 inch out over here. Also, if I leave this length here, right? That's the part that's going across here. This chunk of meat here is something I am very self-conscious about if it's like hanging out of a dress, where if I have something that covers this bit a little bit more, I'm fine with that. But these are things you need to be aware of when you're like grading and adjusting pattern. Curves are in places for a reason. And I'm telling myself, but also you, that bringing this in doesn't necessarily take the whole thing down a full size, but I'm okay with this being graded up here, so there's a little bit of a wider chunk. And the only other seam I'd be tackling is the center back, which again is pretty flat in the middle. That's where the zipper is going to be. That's also going to be an easy straight adjustment. So I think if I just recut all the pieces and then we'll make another mock-up. Genuinely, it is a testament to how much my skills have grown. I can figure out how to navigate this, how to adjust for the issues that are arising. Also, this is why I used basting stitches. So if I had to take anything apart, I just have this nice loose seam that I can go after with the seam ripper. Okay. Heck yeah. What a game-changing development of the center bit. This is fitting exactly how I wanted it to. There's still, 2+ inches seam allowance I gotta take in. So it's still 4+ inches too big for me. This seems wild. Oh right, and there's darts in the back. I forgot. I guess it'll be okay. If I take like 1/2 inch at the side, that'll tighten that all right. Is that gonna fit weird up at the top? No, I think that'll be okay. And then we'll take the rest out of the back. Make sure that we still like how this fits, because then we can take another 1/2 inch off at the sides if need be. Let's tackle it that way. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Keep being smart about this. We're gonna get there. Okay. I did have to add a zipper at the back just because I couldn't get it on with how fitted it is now. But this isn't like over the top loose anymore. I'm just gonna take a measuring tape and press that like against my back and then measure out to the center here where that's hitting. So that's right at 1 inch. So if I take the zipper out that I just put in, which I basted into the seam that was already stitched down at 1/2 inch, if I go another inch in, rebaste the zipper down, I think we might have it. Okay, I think this might, it's fine. I put the zipper at the side seam instead of the back seam. But you know what? It'll be easier for me to actually close. And it shouldn't matter. I did take in that back seam though, which is the important part here. Let's see. Oh, this feels perfect. Oh my goodness. It's like, am I gonna cry about this? I did it. Damn, it is the next day, by the way. Yesterday was a day. Yesterday was the 14th of June, and for some reason, every person I know was just like, what is happening today? So I tapped out at 8 p.m. and was like, I would like this day to end now. So I did not come back in the shop to finish this. Okay, so let's actually see the whole thing. And it like, I am shook, as the kids say. I don't have straps going up here. Obviously, when I do the real version, I will have the zipper at center back because you know, if you've been here for any amount of time, I do not fuck with side zips. But I was thinking a gathered skirt would be the only match for the bottom here, but I can add whatever fucking skirt I want. I can just add a little floofy ruffle and have this as like a summer top. I didn't expect to feel this good in this with pretty straightforward tweaks. I don't know. I haven't done this before. That bit that I didn't trim down coming up here when I was like going down a size, I'm totally fine with where that's sitting. Obviously some of this is gonna get taken up in seam allowance, so like all of this will sit just a little bit lower, but that'll be perfectly fine. I will transfer all of these. So I'm gonna seam rip all the bits here. I'm gonna transfer this onto Swedish tracing paper. I suppose I could use this fabric as the actual pattern pieces. That's not the worst thing. I'll probably hang on to these pieces just so I have them on hand. I can play around with other types of fabric because this is just regular quilting cotton and I have a lot of it because when I first started buying fabric, I didn't know what was good for like fashion wear. So I do have a lot of it. That's probably at least half of my fabric stash. So I'm honestly just pumped to finally use some of that because I haven't known what to do with it. Even though it looks real nice, I've had it for a long time. So yeah, I made a princess seam pattern set that's going to fit me. Like, I'm not necessarily following the pattern that I took this from in any other way. I may do a gathered skirt, but not how she tells me to do it. I can do that without a single bit of pattern instruction. Like, yeah, gathered skirts are maybe the easiest thing for me to make. And especially when it's getting attached to a bodice and you don't have to fuck with a waistband. Oh, nothing could feel breezier to me than that. So I have a lot of making to do, and I have like a nice go-to pattern that will hopefully work for me for a long time. And you know what? If my body does change enough that this does not work for me at any point in the future, this did not take as long as I thought it did to get it to work for me. Very fucking excited. Thank you all so much for sticking around for this type of adventure because you're basically watching me figure out what the fuck I'm doing. These are not tutorials anymore. Not that they ever fully were. This is why I call them a make and chat now, because you're kind of just tagging along for me figuring shit out. And I enjoy that type of content when I'm watching YouTube videos, so hopefully this is entertaining, perhaps motivating, so you will tackle your similar project, because I put this off for at least 3 years. I'd like to give an even bigger thank you to everyone over on my Patreon page for allowing me to work on stuff like this. I would not be able to set aside the time to workshop projects like this if it weren't for y'all, so thank you so much for caring about the stuff that I do. It means the absolute world to me. I'm gonna go make some real pretty summer dresses. Oh, I'm so excited. I will see you all back here with another video next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out. What is that? No, oh, it's my alarm. I thought there were very musical ghosts in the other room.